blocking this. This is my sample block of the Goose Eggs quilt. So I have blocked it already, but the blocking wires that I had, I got them years and years ago. They're very good, but they're quite thick. So I noticed when I blocked this piece that you could see the holes where the blocking wire had been through, and I didn't really like how it looked. So I invested in some new blocking wires, and I got these ones. Excuse my nails, they really need to be repainted. I got the deluxe set because it has, I think, 10 shorter wires, which will be perfect for these blocks, and then I think 4 or 5 really, really long wires, which will be really great for when this is a blanket, because I'll probably give it a final block when it's complete, with the edging on and everything. So I just thought I'd try out these blocking wires today and see how they work, and so far I am a big fan. So they come in this tiny little tin, and they're all coiled up like this, and I was thinking, oh, is that going to be really cumbersome trying to get those wires through the knitting, because I imagined them sort of keeping their coil. But when you they've got sort of like the little wire ties around them, and when you take out the wire ties, they go completely straight. They're flexible still, but they go straight. I was imagining them staying all coiled and it being really difficult. They're a lovely fine gauge as well. They do a small set. I don't know if it's called small, or I think it might be called mix. And that's got, I think, 4 of these short wires and then a couple of long wires, so that would be perfectly adequate. If you're making this blanket and want to invest in some new blocking wires, it just really helps the finished article to be lovely and neat. So far I would recommend these. So when I'm blocking it, I'm just sort of going in and out of the edge stitches that I will then either use to sew up the edges, or sew the edge to the next block, or what I will eventually put the edging on. So I'm trying to sort of go in and out each stitch that you would pick up, because it will be gone through anyway with a needle at some point and a stitch, so the stitch will then become I can't explain what I'm trying to explain, but what you go through with the blocking wire, you will then be going through with yarn in some way, either sewing it together or putting an edging on. So it gives you a sort of good guide, but also you won't see any sort of stretched out stitch, because that stitch will be filled with yarn in some capacity. So yeah, the only thing I'm finding that I'm having to be aware of is getting through the stitches rather than pushing through the strand of yarn, because they are very, very fine wires. I'm very pleased with them though. It's interesting. I might show you a comparison between the blocking wires that I was using and these, because they're incredibly different. The blocking wires that I had are stiff. They would not coil like this because they're too heavy gauge. But yeah, so I'm just going to block this out. I thought with this sample square I'd make it into a cushion front. I thought that might be quite nice. I think I'm going to need some more mats actually. These are surprisingly large squares. I think because you're only ever working on a small number of stitches at a time, I sort of don't expect them when you finish to be quite so big, but it is an investment of knitting time. They do take a while to do, so I should imagine that they would be bigger, but I always imagine that they will be smaller because you're only ever working on a small amount of stitches at one time. But yeah, I went and got a cushion pad yesterday to put make this one into a cushion pad, and I'm going to look through my fabric to see what I've got for the back. I think I've got some like goldy denim, so I might see how that looks as the back, although I'm not sure how that will work. I'm not a cushion making expert by any means. I've made a few but nothing fancy, and I'm not sure how it will work with denim on the back and knitted fabric on the front, because the knitted fabric is so flexible and the denim fabric is so stiff, so it might not be a very good match, but we shall see. I've nearly finished this edge, and then I've got to do the other three, and I think add a couple more blocking mats to this set that I've got out. I finished my January block that's actually the yarn in the Lay Family Yarn Club yesterday, which is exciting, and I've started my February because I am very luckily getting them in advance, which is nice, so that I can sort of be prepared for these little quarterly sessions we're going to have. Okay, so that's one edge done. I really like these wires. They're still going to need pinning out, obviously, because they do sort of have a little bit of a mind to do their own thing. But yeah, I forgot how big this was when I blocked it last time. I definitely used another row of mats on each side. So this is the January block, which I need to sew ends in and do a seam and block. It's lovely. I really like these colours. Yeah, really pretty, those ones. And then, oh, my February block's downstairs, so I'll show you that when it's a bit bigger. Let me show you this. So this is a wire. I wonder if you can see it because it's very, very thin. It's got these little wire ties around it. So just undo the wire tie. There are lots of notes on these wires to be careful when you open it because it does spring out. Oh, there's one little end springing out. Okay, so that's the ties off, and then you sort of unwrap the edges. Whee! And it's just straight, like completely straight. I just think that's magic. I did not anticipate that it would do that, so I am thrilled. Let me turn this round so that I can do this end now. So I got let me just show you the cushion pad I got yesterday. It's quite big, isn't it? So it's 57 centimetres square. And I didn't actually measure. I took this with me and laid it on top of the cushion and thought, yeah, that looks about right. Which isn't the most scientific way of doing it, but I'm sure it will be fine. It's larger than the block was, so I think it should work yeah, did I finish what I was saying earlier? I have to be careful to go through the stitches and not push through the strand of yarn, because these are so fine that they will happily sort of push through the strand of yarn, but they'll bring the yarn with them, so they won't go through and just sort of go cleanly through the yarn. They'll push a little bump of yarn through, which won't be as tidy, so having to be careful to go through the actual hole that the stitch is made rather than through the yarn that is making the stitch. It is Sunday today, it's the 8th. It's my mum's birthday today, which is lovely. She was over yesterday and we had lunch. She played with the little sausage, and then we popped to the shops to get a cushion pad. And we got a coffee on the way home. It was really lovely. And today we are hopefully going to go out and take out little one's bike. David has had about 2 weeks off work for Christmas, and that's been really nice. It's never been particularly easy for David to have time off work, and so, but I won't go into that. But we really appreciate the Christmas period because he always gets a couple of weeks, and it's the longest stretch of holiday he has through the year. So we're just sort of spending the day together, I say, while I'm upstairs. Not with them, but I'm going to do this and then we're going to go out. We're going to spend the day together because it's going to be quite hard him going back on all of us, I think, because we'll miss him. We much prefer spending time together, the three of us, so I think it will be really hard for David because he will miss little sausage so much when he's at work. So we need to get some more time off booked up for him. But yeah, I think we're going to go along to a town nearby that has some nice flat areas for riding his bike. I think I'm going to take along my knitting, just in case there's a bench and I can sit there and do a bit while David chases around the bike. Then they'll come back and keep seeing me. Well, I'll be able to watch them the whole time, but he quite likes that when there's someone at a base that he can sort of go away from and then back to. Little one, not David, I mean. I might even take my book. So, we got the new book club book. We didn't actually go to book club. The other day we missed it, unfortunately, but we got the other book, the new book club book for this month, and I am very nervous about it because it looks disturbing, which, as I've mentioned, is not my bag now. So I don't know if I'm going to be able to read this one. We'll see. It looks like a fantastic book, but I just don't know if I can cope with it. It's called Notes on an Execution, and I just think it might be a little bit much for me. Interestingly, Mum looked up the author on Instagram and she's a knitter, so I can't remember her name, but I'll show you the book so you can see. So yeah, it looks like it's going to be, it looks absolutely fantastic, and 5 years ago I would probably have devoured it, but now I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to cope, so we'll see. But, the town we're going to has a really big second-hand bookshop, so I'd love it if I could pop along to that just to see what they've got. I'd be really interested actually how you choose your books. Do you choose them mostly on recommendation? Do you like going and browsing in a bookshop and reading all of the back covers? Mine's a bit of both. But I've sort of a few in my mind from recommendations that I'd like, so I'll go there with that idea and then see if any book covers grab me. I was talking to Mum about this yesterday, and I find that the cover art really influences whether I can read the book or not, because you're with that cover. It's different, isn't it, if it's on Kindle because you don't see the cover, but if you're reading a paper book, the cover just really makes a difference. Do you know what I'm desperate to get to at the moment actually? Is this one. Ruth Ozeki, The Book of Form and Emptiness. I keep seeing it. Look at that spine, isn't that wonderful? And it's got sprayed edges, which is just absolutely divine. I love sprayed edges. But I love the real sort of simple style of that cover. But yeah, I was talking to Mum and was saying about how I find the cover really influences whether or not I will read them. Like when we went to Oxford the other day, I went into Blackwell's and just having a lovely browse. I couldn't buy anything because frankly it was too big and I was too overwhelmed. But I was having a look at all of the books in there, and I picked up some that I didn't like the covers of, but I knew looked as if they would be interesting, read the back and thought they would be really interesting, but just couldn't get them because I couldn't imagine picking up that cover again and again to read. So they're ones that I can look into on Kindle if I do feel inclined. And yeah, I'd be interested if you have the same experience. I'm also really intrigued by how the covers are different in different countries, like how different countries, the people in them favour a different cover. It's fascinating. Like the book that I'm reading, or the book from book club, my copy, the British copy, has a fox on the front, and the American version is just a purple cover. Oh, and I can't remember, it has got some sort of picture of something, but it's purple, mostly just the title and the author. Very different covers. I just think that's really interesting to know that, like, in entire countries, people have been found to be more drawn to one type of cover than another. Fascinating. Anyway, I'm just rabbiting, so hopefully I'll be able to pop into this second-hand bookshop as well for a little browse. See if anything takes my fancy. Not that I've really had very much time to read lately anyway, because I've been working on these blocks. I need to get that one blocked so that I can photograph it for the pattern. Yeah, I'm really optimistic about these blocking wires. I think they're going to have a lovely finish. Don't know what that was. I put up a poll on Instagram asking what blocking wires people had, and these ones got a couple of recommendations and they were more reasonably priced than some others, so I went with these. But yeah, I'm very, very pleased with them so far. They're such lovely fine gauge metal that I don't think they'll leave any sort of pulls or misshapen stitches in the knitting. And I imagine if you were to do like a crescent shawl or something like that, I imagine it'd have a beautiful effect, because the wire is so flexible that you can would really be able to pin out that curve really nicely. So I will carry on with this, and then perhaps I'll show you it when it's all blocked out, and then we must get out. The sky was bright blue a minute ago, and now it is completely grey, and I think it might rain, so we'll need to take our raincoats. Let me go out for our little cycle. So I've added in an extra row of blocking wires on 2 sides, and I've just started pinning them. I've got these blocking mats, I've added in an extra set of blocking mats around each side. I've got these blocking mats that have got lines on, which for something like this is really, really useful, because I can just follow the line and make it square. I'll probably move these pins a few times in the blocking process while I just get everything squared up. And I'm using this ruler. It's not as necessary for the first one, because the first one I'll sort of block to what feels right, and then I'll measure that. But then the subsequent ones I will block to the measurements of the first one. So it's quite handy having this, and it's also handy having it to make sure that your block measures the same in both directions, so you know it's an actual square and not just straight. I've got these little pins that came with this blocking set, which are really nice actually. They're really nice and fine also. So yeah, I think I might have blocked this a little bit too long, so because this right now measures 26 and that's too long. So, because I know last time I blocked it to 23. I guess that's the only thing with the, that's 25, so that's still too long. That's the only thing with the sort of more stiff wires, is that it just seems sort of easier to get the straight edge. That's 24 now, so I'll probably still move it. But let me come around here. I've got a massive bag of fabric down here, which is for me to have a look through to see if I can find something for the back of this as a cushion. Yeah, see, that's blocked out too much. So this is quite a time-consuming process, because you are going to be constantly, or I tend to constantly be reworking how my fabric is sitting and where I've got the pins and how much I've stretched out the fabric. And garter stitch stretches a lot, but you don't necessarily want it stretched to absolute capacity, because it might not look as nice. It might just sort of look quite floppy, and you sort of might be able to see that it's been stretched a lot. So yeah, getting it in the right place is just a bit of trial and error, and removing and replacing the pins quite a lot of times. So it can take a while, but it's really worth doing well. Worth persevering. Put on an audiobook or a podcast and keep going round and round and replacing and removing and replacing those pins. If you don't stick them too far through if you don't stick the pins too far through your blocking mats, then you can just spin the blocking mats, which is quite helpful, instead of having to travel around your piece, which is impossible for me because there's a wall just there. So I'm making sure I'm not going through too much so that I can then rotate the blocks instead of me having to go around. I got these blocking mats for Christmas a couple of years ago, and they're really helpful because I had the you know, the sort of children's play mats before, and I still use those sometimes because I have more of them, so I can block something larger. These only have this amount of blocks, I think it's 9. But these are much thicker, which is good. They just feel very sturdy. I'm finding as I'm going round, you do need more pins with these more flexible wires, which makes sense because the wire will move so much more freely than those stiffer ones that I used before. This is definitely a sort of by feel thing. I don't think there's I just think you've got to just constantly keep assessing what everything looks like when you're blocking. I think that's a little bit too high, so I'm going to bring that down. Can you hear that? That's Bobbin snoring. Such a lovely boy. I got him a new toy yesterday when we popped into the pet shop because he's not as active as he was. It's strange really, my last dog Brewski, he I don't remember his sort of decline happening as early. He went on until he was 17 and he just seemed quite puppyish up until quite close to the end. But Bobbin isn't as active as he was and stuff, so I got him this little, I think it's called a snuffle mat. It's like a mat with loads of fleecy, like fringes almost, that you tuck treats into. So he can use his brain, like sniffing out for these treats, which he really enjoyed because he loves finding things. So he enjoyed that. I was pleased that he got that yesterday. So I'll do that for him most days, I imagine, because it's keeping his brain active when his body isn't as willing to be as active anymore. So yeah, he really liked that. It was fun. It was lovely to watch him get so into it. Yeah, I think I've stretched this out a little bit too much here. Let me see what measurement this is giving. Oh, that's actually looking quite good. It's just these wires, it's just getting used to something new because I'm really having to sort of pull them out into place. I wish I had one of those overhead projector things so you could see it coming, not projector, what's it called? That thing I can never find, tripod. So you could see it sort of coming out to its final shape. If I knew that I'd be able to make time to make videos more frequently, I definitely invest in one of those, but never quite sure how much I'll use it, so I'm always loath to spend on things that I don't know how much use I'll get out of. Okay, so if we follow this line, I think, yeah, doing a square thing on these blocking mats with the lines is just so good. It's raining again. I'm not sure if this cycling trip is going to work out. Can you hear him? My goodness, he's such a little snorer. So lovely. Okay, so what would this measurement be? So I've pinned out all of the edges now. Okay, so yeah, this can come out a little bit more just here. Perhaps I'll just show you if you come over here. So I've pinned out all of the edges, but as you can see, there's a little bit of not straight line and a little bit of excess fabric here, so I'm going to bring this line down here a little bit more, and I can see I need to take this edge out a little bit. That looks pretty straight along the top and along the side, so they might be able to stay where they are. I'll just get these two edges. I find this quite relaxing, really, doing this process. And then what would be quite good, I think, if you're going to be, if you know you're going to be blocking the blocks to the same dimensions, I was thinking, like, if you stick down some washi tape to the shape that you're stretching it out to, that might be quite good. I'm thinking of marking the line that I go up to, because these all go up to a line. That might be quite useful, but you'll have the measurements, so it might not be necessary, but it's just finding the thing that works for you, isn't it? That will make the process the simplest if you're making a quilt, because you'll have to do it several times. So yeah, big fan of these wires so far. So I think I've just got to bring this line out just a fraction, maybe put in a couple more pins so that it all stays really straight. And I mean, it's not going to stay like an absolute stiff board when it comes off the blocking mats, because it's knitting, it's flexible, it's fabric, but this gives it its guide that you're hoping, or like expecting it to keep to mostly. Just got to bring this line up here a little bit. And then once you've got them all sewn together, or once I've sewn all of mine together, I'll and put the edging on, because I'll block each one as I go so that I can sew it to the next one blocked. And then once it's all together and got the edging on, then I'll probably block it again. But I won't be using mats for that because I won't have enough. So I'll probably just put a towel on the bed and see if I can pin it down to the towel, see how that works out. I've never blocked something so large before, so it will be a learning curve for me as well. So I think that's nearly there. A couple more pins just to keep everything where I want it while it dries. little manual manipulation just to make sure everything is as I want it to. So what's that final measurement? So that now is 23 by 23, and luckily, because I've got the lines, that makes it nice and easy to know that it's square. So that's interesting, that's what I've looked at before, so that works. And for these little edges, because I know that this is going to be investigated by my little flower, I'm just going to pin them curved inwards so they're not poking out, because they're pretty invisible, so they would, I don't want any eye poking or general bodily poking with these wires, so I'm just going to pin them round so that they stay. Nicely contained. Pin that round just a bit more actually. Yay! So that's done. Let me show you how it looks. All blocked out. Now if you do undertake this pattern and plan to do a quilt or a blanket, then I would highly recommend sewing in your ends as you go. I did not do that on this one or the one that I've just knit, even though I know that it is the absolute best thing to do, but I would highly recommend it. It would save a lot of time. Right, I'm just going to put my little pins back in and then leave this all to dry. And it is absolutely, completely and utterly pouring with rain outside, so I think the cycling is going to be put on pause. Let's see if I can show you how grey it is out there. Isn't that a very, very wet day? Look who's found a duvetless spot. Hey little big hunky. Oh, beautiful boy. I think he's licking me to try and get rid of me, but so I'm just taking this off the blocking mats. It's a few days later now because I need to take a photo of the block for the pattern page, but I thought I would just show you something that I've made. So, you know, I mentioned my battery's gonna die. I've had the other one on charge. You know, I mentioned making a cushion. You can't see my head, I haven't got my what's the thing even called that I always forget to have? Tripod. That's it. Let me just show you now before the battery goes. I made a cushion with my other block. So this is just one block. There's Bobbin. Hey Bob. So it blocks out quite big. This one I backed with fabric. I just had this nice fabric in my stash. It's just a nice light cotton. It's really sweet fabric actually. It's sort of a taupe gingham but with circles. And I just did a pillow back, if that's what it's called, I don't know. But yeah, that's one block. So I sewed this onto the fabric. But I think if I were to do a cushion again, I think I would probably use 2 blocks, crochet around the edge, and then what might be quite nice is to pick that up all around the crochet edge and do an I-cord so that it's sort of like piping on a cushion. So yeah, but I'm pleased with how that has come out. This is my sort of test square with colours from my stash, and it'll go nicely in my living room, so yeah, I'm pleased with that. I think I used a 57 by 57 centimetre cushion pad. So that's lovely. But yes, I have got to take this photo tonight. I'm over here. So it's blocked out really nicely. It has come in a little bit when I'm taking it off the mats. It's just sort of squidged, just shrunk in a little bit, but that's fine because I'll do all of them to the same measurement, and they're all with exactly the same yarn, so they'll shrink to the same size, I would imagine. But not entirely sure how I'm going to photograph it yet. What will it be in my first blanket? I'll have a little look. So this is the first block, all nicely blocked. Oh, I love it when it's just fresh off the blocking mats. It's just so draped so nicely, and I'm absolutely thrilled with these blocking wires. They've left a very neat edge, whereas my other one didn't. So I think I blocked that a second time, did I? I can't remember. But yeah, these have left a much neater edge. It was sort of bumpy with the other wires because the wires were so thick. So yeah, I can't wait to get another one made so I can start seaming together. I'm so excited. I've got one in progress at the moment. I might put that in the picture as well. But anyway, I better go and check I've got an actual charged battery so that I can take these pictures. I'll see you soon. Okay, trying a photo from up here. And this is the first time I've sort of seen them all together, and I'm so pleased. They look so lovely together. This is the block that I'm working on now. Okay, I think I got the final picture. And I've of course got some help. Hello, Bob. Lovely boy. He's just been playing with Teddy and they were making so much noise. So I think he's worn out now. You're a good boy. Okay, now to get the pictures into the pattern.